Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. This is NFA Live. Here we are every single Thursday. We have Guy from Coin Bureau.
Hey Ben, how you doing?
How's it going?
Yeah, all good this end. All
And
good.
we have Rob from Digital Asset News, who no longer can afford electricity because he is knee deep in the meme coin market.
They said that I would be a millionaire, and I believed them, but they all rug pulled me. This is awful.
Well, hopefully the market will go back up so that our friend Rob can afford electricity again.
That'd be awesome.
But let's go ahead and jump in. There's a lot of things I want to talk about today, including mostly a lot of the topics that I like talking about. So we're going to start off with everyone's favorite topic, the ETH Bitcoin valuation. It just put in a new cycle low, so it's at 0.0374. I want to say, yeah, 0.03747. So it's dropped quite a bit, right? I mean, and this was kind of where I thought it would go. And now that it's here, right now that it's here, it's kind of like, well, how much lower is it going to go? So I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on that. How much lower do you guys see ETH Bitcoin going? Maybe not like a number, but could you see it turning around at any point in the short term, or is it just one of those things that is just going to keep on bleeding? The next thing we'll talk about are our yields in the dollar. Then we'll talk a little bit about Tesla. That's been kind of an interesting name recently. I want to get Rob's input some on the real estate market, especially with rates going back up. And then we'll have to end it off with Bitcoin dominance, Rob's favorite topic. So, Guy.
That's exactly right.
Guy, first question, ETH Bitcoin, new cycle low. Is it, are we looking at a bleeder here? Or do you think it can sort of form a higher low compared to where it bottomed out in 2019? What are your thoughts?
I guess we've got to look at it from the point of view of well, firstly, I think the ETFs they tell us a lot, don't they? We've now got spot ETFs for Bitcoin and for Ethereum, and I think if we've learned one thing over the last few months since those Ethereum ETFs were approved and then came to market in that fairly sort of short period of time. If there's one thing that we've learned, it seems on the face of it that Bitcoin is enough crypto exposure for the majority of TradFi at this stage. I've seen the inflows into the spot Bitcoin ETFs really started to pick up again. The spot ETH ETFs still very lackluster. And I mean, we did talk about this. This was something that I think a lot of people pointed out when those ETH ETF, when the hype around those ETH ETFs was building. It's like, well, Bitcoin obviously has this strong narrative of digital gold as a hedge, and Ethereum kind of less so in terms of narrative. It's a lot more. It's a lot harder for non-crypto people to understand. Therefore, it's a kind of harder sell to ETF investors. And I guess a lot of these ETF investors have gone, well, crypto is only going to be 1%, maybe up to 5% of my portfolio, and Bitcoin is fine as far as that goes. So that's what the ETFs have told us so far, I think. So the question becomes, what factors, what catalysts are there to turn it around for Ethereum? And that's where it gets tricky if you're a fan of Ethereum, like I am, because there aren't a huge amount that I can think of, really. I mean, there's a major upgrade coming soon, Pectra, which I think is due either the end of this year or early next year. That has improvements around kind of scalability and particularly user experience. I think it should make building on Ethereum easier as well. So on the face of it, all good stuff, all good things for the network. But whether that's going to translate to more users, whether that's going to translate to more demand, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say yes at this point. And I think, you know, especially when you and then you look at all the competition that it has, and so many of these other alternate L1s taking up mindshare. Obviously, Solana's the big one, but even Solana is now experiencing competition of its own from the likes of Sui and Aptos, and then there are plenty of other L1s too. You throw in the fragmentation that ETH's L2 ecosystem has brought along, so it is hard to see. I guess one of the things that could be bullish for Ethereum in perhaps the sort of medium to longer term is the tokenization narrative, because BlackRock obviously chose Ethereum for its BUIDL offering. And depending on who you ask, you know, RWAs are a massive opportunity. You know, there's potentially trillions of dollars in value in those. So that could, and if Ethereum can capture that narrative. But yeah, the short answer is, from a fundamental perspective, I think as things stand at the moment, that ETH BTC pair can definitely go lower. I don't want to put a number on it because I think you're better at doing that. But yeah, it can go lower from here, I'm afraid to say.
I honestly don't even think that I can put a number on it. You know, I 2 years ago I just said 0.0375 is my main target, and it's there now, and it's now below that. So you know, it's interesting because what seemed like a very difficult target to reach turns out to have been a conservative target potentially. But I think I do think there certainly are a lot of narratives, but I almost just wonder if the biggest thing that could turn it around in 2025, I still don't really think it's going anywhere until then, would be just the monetary policy loosening up. That could be all we really need. Sort of like the reverse of because there's a lot of good things happening on Ethereum in the ETH Bitcoin downtrend. Maybe it's just the monetary policy that needs to reverse it. I don't know. We'll see. It's really anyone's guess at this point. Rob, what do you think? I mean, is ETH Bitcoin destined to just keep on bleeding? Is that why you're knee deep in meme coins, because you gave up on ETH? What do you think?
I'm knee deep in meme coins because they're going to be the future of finance. Damn it! So no. What you know? A guy brought up a really good point. And it was the narrative around BUIDL for BlackRock. If we've seen anything, it's just how well Larry Fink and BlackRock can push a product. That guy is the king of all shills. He is just crushing it. But take a look at this. I'm going to share my screen real quick, and we'll go over this. So when I was thinking about it, and Guy actually brought this up too about the ETFs, the appetite by institutions. ETFs are all they need is Bitcoin, it looks like. And you'll notice here, this is from May Apollo. It's never gone negative. It's always positive net flows, and we've seen it. And actually, a couple of days ago, we were at an all-time high of 349,000 Bitcoin flows. And now we just lost 1,000. Where the heck did that go? Well, it was ARK. ARK just sold 2,000 Bitcoin. It's going to happen. And when people say you never take profits, you're going to diamond hands. Look, even the people that are in here doing the ETFs are going to dump on you at some point if you are into, and I know it's an ETF is a big difference, but I'm just saying this is the reality of the situation. Also, to talk about what Guy, just to piggyback, Ethereum ETF flows, this is from Farsight. It's been in the red from its inception. And the reason is because Grayscale here has dumped a boatload of it as time has gone on. So now you're looking at negative 475 million. So the appetite really isn't there. But again, that narrative that Guy brought up was perfect about real world assets, tokenization, and trillions of dollars. So is it a sleeper? It might be. But sometimes I think about it and I think, well, how does it compare? Well, if we take a look at DeFi Llama for like TVL, the TVL for total volume locked DeFi stuff, 112 billion. You know what the majority of it is? It's an ETH, 63 billion. And if you tack on like Base, almost 3 billion, and Arbitrum, these are layer twos, you're looking at, upwards of 60, 75% of the TVL. But so that's the kind of like the positive parts. But if I take a step back and take a look at what Ben is talking about as far as like the ETH pairs, Ben, I watched your video about this dubious speculation on Ethereum. I think you talked about in 2019, the Bitcoin ETH pair was like way lower, like 0.02 or something like that beforehand.
ETH Bitcoin, yeah, ETH Bitcoin was 0.016 or something.
And that's super low. But if we just take a look, this is what I'm always showing people Well, actually, I'm showing them the, actually, well, first, I'm stealing all your information from your website. And then second of all, I'm showing this Bitcoin monthly returns table. I mean, just in September, I mean, not too bad. October, looking pretty good. And then if we just take a look and just go around for Ethereum, I mean, this has been a bad month. This has been a pretty bad year, except for February. It rocketed up, but that's, I think, piggybacking off of the approval of the Bitcoin ETF. But if we just take a look at things, just going across the continuum over like, actually, what am I? This is not it. This right here, just over like the last year, and this is something I was thinking about what Guy said on our last show, and we were talking about Google searches for Bitcoin and how it had been going down. And Guy said, and he made a good point, maybe it's because people aren't using the Google search engine. Maybe they're using something outside of Brave. Maybe they're using the search engine inside Twitter. Maybe they're using it inside other social media platforms that don't correlate to Google, and that's why. So sometimes I take a look at this and go, maybe it's just Ethereum is just, even though it has good narratives and things are going on, maybe it's just something that we just have to go on past and take a look at what the future could potentially be. And I just took a look at like the last year. Ethereum, just the last year, I mean, you're essentially flat, 2,200 to, what is this, 2,500? I mean, that's over a year's time. I mean, yeah, you peaked out if you sold, but I mean, a lot of people are just kind of looking at this and going, how's price appreciation? Well, the top 10, look at BNB. It went from 300 to 600 in a year's time. That's a 2x. Solana, 94 to 170 something today. That's like a 1.5x. XRP, well, I can't help you there. Sorry, Army. Dogecoin, I mean, you went from 7 cents to 14 cents, essentially. And then Tron, which I'm always making fun of, went from 10 cents to 16 cents. So when I take a look at this correlation of the last year of where things are going, I don't, Ethereum, sometimes it's like a conundrum for me. I just don't know if it is the future of finance. There's good narratives, but if I look at it, I just think there's some faster horses, and that's even in the top 10. So could it blow up? Well, I still hold Ethereum, but I've diversified into other layer ones, and this is the reason why.
Fair enough. Look, it's crazy. I always get you guys' opinions on this stuff because, you know, sometimes it's easy to get tunnel vision on what we think is going to happen. But to actually hear people talk about it, you know, look at it from different perspectives, I think is great. The next thing I'd like to talk about.
Sorry to interrupt, Ben. Sorry, I just want to say, just to pick up on one thing Rob said as well about Larry Fink. You know, I think that's absolutely right too, because like, you know, if Larry Fink gets on, he is already kind of on board with Ethereum because of BUIDL and the fact that BlackRock are offering an Ethereum ETF. But if he decides that he's going to push Ethereum in the same way that he pushed Bitcoin, then that could be the catalyst, because, you know, institutional Wall Street listens to what Larry Fink has to say, and people beyond Wall Street listen to what he has to say. And the fact is as well that, you know, these institutions looking, if the RWA narrative kicks off, if we see more institutional interest come to crypto in general, then they're going to look and they're going to look principally at security. You know, they want a chain that they know is secure, and that's what Ethereum offers. That these other L1s, yes, they're faster, yes, they're perhaps easier to use, especially for retail, but they don't have the validator set that Ethereum does. They don't have that decentralization. There is still much more of a security risk with these. So, you know, that can, if Larry Fink is able to make that case convincingly, then I think perhaps it will be TradFi, it will be institutions that sort of ride to the rescue for Ethereum in those circumstances. Sorry, Ben, I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
No, good point.
No, that's fine. It was funny because when Rob was talking about, you know, Google and something that Guy had said last week about, you know, what if people aren't really using Google, I was like, do any of us ever go to Google and type in Bitcoin? I don't know that I ever do that. I feel like if I'm curious about what's going on with Bitcoin, I would be more likely to just go over to Twitter or X. But even then, I don't really ever think I'm searching Bitcoin in the search bar. It just shows up on my feed because, you know, that's what I'm interested in. So that's what shows up on my feed. But yeah, it's interesting.
I did try to imagine what the sort of person who does Google Bitcoin is like. You know, is it someone who's like, you know, is it someone in their sort of 70s or something who's like, oh, I've been hearing about this damn thing for 10 years now. Right. Okay, fine. I'm gonna find out, because it's like, I don't know, maybe we're just too involved with it. It's just looking at us whenever we turn our computer on. But yeah, you do sort of wonder, and kids as well, you know, because TikTok, we see, you know, you see TikTok searches for Bitcoin going crazy, and meme coins as well. You know, this is where a lot of Gen Z, you know, get their information from. It's TikTok, which is frankly terrifying.
I'd like to see that as an indicator, actually. That'd be great, Ben. Put your devs on that. Crypto risk indicators. Put that in some kind of the metrics. Huh?
For TikTok?
No, on your website. Like that, the screen I'm showing you right now.
Oh, sorry, let me put it back up.
Yeah, just stick that, like all types of like social metrics, Google searches, TikToks, X, whatever.
We already have X. Go to charts.
All right. See, now I get to learn some more stuff.
Yeah,
charts.
Top of the page, charts. Now go to crypto tab. Scroll all the way down. You see Twitter. Up a little, Twitter. Now Twitter followers 2 people. Go to analysts. The first one there, because you're included in this. You're included.
That's just. Yeah, but that's new Twitter followers. I'm talking about like searches for like. Huh?
You're talking about searches specifically.
Searches specifically. But this does look interesting. I can see that. Oh, look at all these people. Man, look at over here.
I mean, it's crazy because you think about Bitcoin's at 67K, and compared to 2021, no one cares.
Nobody cares. Look at that. Plan B had 13,000 new followers. And that dropped off the face of the planet. Well, it happens. Yeah. Bitcoin University, Bankless, Coin Bureau. Yeah, I've heard of him.
These are I think these are 7-day moving averages that you're looking at, because if you just put like the instantaneous one, it's the 7-day. So actually at the top, if you just go to none, if you change it to none, like away from a simple moving average to the first option.
Where's
Never mind, don't worry. It's literally under it's right above the 3-day SMA. So if you click on 7-day SMA.
None. Yeah. The one that says none right there. Oh, that one. None.
That one. Yeah.
Okay, none.
Yeah.
Okay.
What did Plan B get at the actual top? What did he get in a single day?
The actual top would be here, roughly
22,000.
22,000. Wow.
In a day.
In a day. Alex Becker, 8,000.
That is absolutely impressive. I tip my hat to him for that, because that's insane. 22,000 new Twitter followers in a day.
Yeah, who's crushing it now? That's the question. Bob Lucas. Benjamin
really,
Cowan. What?
I mean, look, no one's really getting a lot of new followers these days.
I'm getting 239.
Not even 1,000.
Not even 1,000.
It's not a lot. I mean, not compared to 2021 is the point.
Yeah. Losers.
But yeah, anyways, we digress.
Benjamin Cowan guy's doing well.
We digress.
Yeah, Cowan's doing pretty good.
Yeah, crushing it.
697, right above Ivan Tech and Crypto Windy. And somehow he beats me, 640. But I beat Alex Becker, so I'm pretty happy. 638 to 640.
Well, I mean, in Alex Becker's defense, I don't really think he's been posting as much recently, has he?
Oh, that hurt. That hit me. Why don't you rub it in, Ben?
All
right, dude.
Speaking of rubbing it in, why don't we talk about Bitcoin dominance? So,
no, that's coming though. That's coming.
So the first thing we'll talk about is yields in the dollar. So yields in the dollar are up a lot since the first rate cut. I think there's a decent chance they're going to get a pullback at some point soon, probably before going higher. But I'm kind of curious about one thing. Do you think the 50 basis point rate cut last FOMC was justified in September? Because ever since the Fed cut, the long end has done nothing but go up. The dollar has done nothing but go up. And the labor market has done nothing but generally show, stronger prints, right? Right after they cut in September, the unemployment rate dropped to 4.1%. Non-farm payroll was at like 250,000. And so you have to wonder, right? Like normally when the Fed starts with a 50 basis point rate cut, it's because something really bad is happening, right? Something really bad is happening. So there's one of two scenarios here. Something really bad is happening and we just can't see it yet, or they've cut premature. Because you could argue that if nothing bad is really happening, why didn't they just kick it off with a 25 basis point rate cut? Why start with 50? But I'm curious. Do you think that history will look kindly on the Fed, many years down the road and sort of say, that 50 basis point rate cut was in fact justified. It's just the market couldn't see it at the time. Or do you think that the history will not look kindly on them and say that 50 basis point rate cut was a big mistake? Rob, what do you think?
I think it's an impossible job that Jay Powell has, and
That's
everybody
true.
wants I mean, that's the worst. Everybody wants this to be the soft landing, but I mean, how many times have we really gotten a soft landing? Usually I mean, it's happened in the past. I understand that, but like this one, I mean, it's ridiculously tough. And if we take a look at the DXY US dollar index, why is it on a day? Let me go over for a year. I mean, yeah, just like you said, when was the rate cut? September
18th.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can just see after that, it just rallied up and it continues to go up. And when the DXY goes up, usually Bitcoin will go down because the dollar is strong. When the dollar gets weak, it's an inversion. So
that hasn't been the case so far.
No, it hasn't, it's odd. And there's a lot of these indicators that have come out that they don't really add up. I think there was, the economic indicators that just came out were a little bit off since 2022. And now we've got, what was the initial claims recently?
Pretty low, actually. I just, it was like in the 220s again. So it actually dropped a lot. I think maybe some of the reason for the elevated initial claims a couple of weeks ago is just because of the hurricane. I think that was one of the reasons.
Yeah. So, I mean, if all this, I don't really have a strong opinion here. I just say it's an impossible mission. But I'm happy that the rate cuts are here. I'm happy that we're going to see quantitative easing. And I personally think we're going to see what's called a melt up, or a little bit more of hyperinflation than anything else. And that's just how it has to be. The Fed's got a choice. Either they can inflate things away or they can deflate everything and then have a major crash. I think they're going to kick the can down the road like they usually do. We're going to see money printing like crazy. It's going to be a great run. But then after that, there's going to be a price due at some point. We can't keep doing this and not have a real recession. And that's going to happen. I just don't know if it's going to be end of 2026, 27, but everybody's been calling for a recession forever and it still hasn't happened. So, but I think when it does happen, it'll be awful.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have learned lessons this cycle, right? Don't be the person calling for a recession over and over and over again.
Exactly. Guy, what do you got on this one?
The business cycle takes forever to play out, like absolutely forever. Someone says the Fed is 2 for 11 on soft landings, so it's not impossible.
Not impossible.
It's not impossible. And also, there actually was a time, Q4 of 2016, the dollar rallied and Bitcoin also rallied. So it's not that it never happens. It's just that it's not the most common outcome, right? Bitcoin rallied in Q4 of 2016 when the dollar rallied, but you know what didn't rally? Altcoins. They actually dropped. So it was like Bitcoin was strong enough to face off against the dollar rally, but the altcoin market was not strong enough to face off against it. And you're actually kind of seeing something similar happen now, right? Like Bitcoin's been a lot stronger than a lot of the altcoins have been so far in Q4. Some alts have done okay, but most of them I think have been not doing so great. Guy, what do you think about what the Fed's decision to cut 50 basis points? Was it the right move?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess we'll find out in time. I think in terms of thinking in terms of yields and the DXY. I mean, in terms of longer term yields, like the 10-year rate, I think is being driven by much longer term factors than so I mean, inflation. If you ask anyone in the market at the moment, everyone expects sort of inflation long term. Everyone expects $1 to be worth a lot less in the future than it is now. That seems to be kind of a nailed on fact. So I think that's one thing worth bearing in mind. And then the rally in the DXY is interesting, given that Donald Trump is supposedly in favor of a weaker dollar because of what that can do for exports. And I've seen a lot to suggest that markets are currently kind of rallying because they're expecting a Trump win, or certainly that's what a lot of market participants seem to want. So I think those are two things sort of worth bearing in mind when we, discussing things like yields and DXY. As to the rate cut, I suppose really the Fed had it perhaps in hindsight it would have been more sensible for the Fed to leave themselves room. It does seem like an odd thing to have done, to have gone so hard so early. But then again, I mean, they did hold off on that cut for quite a long time. I mean, markets have been calling for it for a while, and the Fed was sort of, they kept on kind of stonewalling it with, we're data dependent, et cetera, et cetera. And interestingly as well, at that Fed meeting, we saw a dissent against that cut, which I think was the first dissenting voice since 2005. So it shows that, not everyone in the Fed necessarily agrees with that. So maybe with the benefit of hindsight, 50 basis points was a bit too much.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. I mean, they did wait to even cut in the first place. So you could have argued maybe they should have cut in even earlier, maybe just a 25 basis point rate cut. But I don't know, guys. I mean, so far, I think the bigger point that everyone keeps, talking about is that, I mean, like the stock market is at all-time highs. And initial claims still aren't so bad. I think the biggest concern is the unemployment rate, but that's mostly going up due to an expanding labor force. I kind of just wonder if the long end of the yield curve is just almost doing what the Fed's not willing to do. like basically saying, you know what, like screw you guys, like, we're not gonna, like, it's like the bond market's revolting in a way, right? It is kind of what it seems like the bond market's not having it and demanding higher yield. But we'll just continue on. I'd like to talk about Tesla, because we're about to have the market open here in about 3 minutes. And we got earnings yesterday from Tesla. And right after earnings, Tesla's up like 14%. And, it has been lagging the broader market by, for a while. It did rally in Q4 2016. And actually really similar circumstances, right? The dollar was rallying. It had been bleeding for a lot of the year. You even had, similar presidential, the Republican candidate is the same as he was back in 2016, right? So, I mean, you have a lot of similarities. And then even also in 2019, as the Fed started to cut, Tesla started to go up, the valuation of Tesla. So where do you guys think Tesla is going to go from here? I mean, it's strange that you have like Meta, Microsoft, and Apple, and Nvidia. They just keep on pushing new all-time highs. Yet Tesla is still, pretty far below its own all-time high. So, Guy, what's your view on Tesla here? Is it something you are long-term bullish on? What do you think?
Yeah, I would say I'm long-term bullish on it in terms of, I think it's probably one of the better proxy bets for AI, rather than the car aspect of it. And we can talk about the sort of competition that Tesla's got in that sphere in a bit. But yeah, I mean, we had this demonstration, was it last week or the week before, wasn't it, of this robo-taxi and then this Optimus robot, which kind of, and we've been putting together a video on the Tesla robot, because it's a fascinating, that whole history of sort of humanoid robots and the sort of that quest that we seem to be on to bring them into our lives. That is fascinating. But with it, the step up in AI capability to make that a reality is huge. But that seems to be, this idea of robots and autonomous vehicles or something, that seems to be something that Tesla is kind of going after, pouring a lot of R&D into. And if they can crack that market, Elon Musk, wasn't he, was talking about this Optimus robot having a sort of a price point. Was it between $20,000 and $30,000, which is quite a lot. But if it works, if it ends up working as well as he thinks it can, then that would be this incredible consumer product. So I think it is a kind of good bet long term, especially when you factor in the AI side of it. I think the car, I mean, it's been a phenomenal success, obviously, with its cars. But I think a lot now rests on on who the next president is, because Elon Musk has put himself so firmly behind Trump. And I mean, he said this himself. He said that in that Tucker Carlson interview, didn't he? He said if Harris gets elected, he's a bit screwed. So, I mean, that's going to be fascinating to see what happens in that case. And if Trump does win, as Musk hopes he will, what then? What is Elon Musk hoping to get out of this? I mean, for instance, does he want tariffs on Chinese EVs, of which there are, there's a lot of competition there, or would that just end up screwing up his supply chains? I'm curious to see sort of what a Donald Trump victory means for Tesla and what a Kamala Harris victory means for it.
I was actually thinking about that some, and thinking like, Elon was really taking on a big risk by becoming as political as he's become. But then I was thinking more about it. I'm like, Elon has never shied away from taking risk. I mean, he took on a huge risk with Tesla and with SpaceX, right? So, I mean, it kind of fits. It really shouldn't be that surprising. It kind of fits his risk-taking spirit. So perhaps it's, it kind of makes sense and it fits his story. Rob, what do you think about Tesla?
First of all, does anybody here own Tesla stock?
I do.
Guy? Yeah.
No, I don't. No.
Yeah, I do. I bought it at the peak of the market in 2021, and then I just never really did much with it. I just let it sit there on my Robinhood account. And you're right, Ben. Like, I looked at it today, I'm like, oh, I should be up, and I'm like, hey, what the hell? But I mean, up a little bit, but that's just how it is. But if you take a look at it, like, this is the one thing that to piggyback on what Guy said about the show, which was on October 10th. If you can throw up the screen, I don't know if you guys saw this, but it was pretty cool. It was, I'm not going to show it, but Elon Musk comes in with the robo-taxi, which I think are going to cost around $35,000. So you can buy those and you can be, a taxi owner essentially. You can be Uber without Ubering, which is pretty cool. And then they showed this video of this guy talking to the robot Optimus and talking just like you would, like, I don't know if you guys ever use this function in ChatGPT, but you can turn it on where you can talk to the ChatGPT. It's like a little headphone icon. Like when I'm reading books or something, I'll ask a question like, what does this part mean? And we'll have like a more of an in-depth conversation. We'll kind of go for it. It's the same thing with the robot. I thought it was pretty cool. But this was on October 10th. And when I took a look at Tesla stock, like the next day, I'm like, what the hell happened? Like there was like this big thing, and then it just kind of dropped off the face of the planet. So I was like, well, that's just how it is. But I mean, Ben's right. There's a lot of, two things. First of all, I took a look at it because I didn't understand why the prices went up, but it looks like this was Q3 was Tesla's official best quarter ever. Their earnings per share was, and this was non-GAAP, 72 versus 58 estimate. And if you take a look at the earning per share, GAAP was 62. So, I mean, it was higher than, it's actually better than what they thought. Net income, $2.17 billion. Affordable models are coming in 2025. I don't know if you know, but like the Tesla Model X is super expensive and the Cybertruck is outlandish, but they're having one called Model 2.5, which is going to cost like $25,000. And they're going to increase the growth by 30% next year. And then there was one more thing. Their full service driving or human level driving, they expect that by Q2 of 2025. So if you're taking a look at like a company that's really doing it and taking massive risks and it's actually paying off, Tesla would be the one. But then the last thing I would say is to piggyback what Ben said, it is risky because they had a summit under the Biden administration for EV and about, and they invited all the titans of the EV industry, and it was Dodge and it was some other car companies, but Tesla wasn't invited. So if you think that that it's not a gamble for Elon to throw his weight behind Trump, and he's going to be rewarded for it in the next one, he is going to get screwed by this administration. And that's just a prediction, but I'm sure it's going to pay. I'm sure it's going to come to fruition. They are going to lambast him. We'll see.
Maybe Dodge doesn't like Elon because Elon likes Doge.
Yeah, maybe it's like, hey, just add the D. Speaking of adding the D, let's
can I
talk
ask
about
you
Bitcoin
guys?
down. Go ahead, guys.
Can I ask you guys? I mean, do you see a lot of Teslas on the road?
In Puerto Rico, I see them everywhere. Here in El Paso, I don't see. Well, actually, I got a guy on the street that has it, but it's very rare. But it's weird in Puerto Rico, tons of them. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's very,
Because here in, sorry, Ben, go on.
I was gonna say it's very geographic dependent. Like there are some places I've lived where I didn't see them anywhere. Like when I lived in New Mexico for a while, like I think I barely ever saw them. But then when I moved to the East Coast, I feel like I see them all the time.
It's weird.
I actually rode in a Cybertruck for the first time this past weekend.
Yeah, what'd you think?
How was that?
I mean, I actually liked it. Like I thought the inside was pretty cool. We tested out the self-driving capabilities of it, which I thought was it's kind of one of those things where I feel like, you know, like maybe our kids or you know, like our at some point in the future, you know, people might not be driving cars at all, you know, and you can kind of when I saw that, I was like, wow, like this is one of those things where I feel like people that are already in, say, like their 60s or 70s might have a really hard time accepting that change. People around our age might be a little bit more okay with it, but if you think about like Gen Z or whoever else, like, you know, the new generations coming up, that's probably what they're going to grow up with at some point. And that'll be all they know. So I thought it was kind of cool, and it was like, all right, well, this is probably going to be the future. But yeah, I think Tesla, I mean, it is more than a car company. I do think it's going to do well in the coming years. I think the bigger risk right now is just sort of the broader market risk. But I think Tesla is actually somewhat undervalued with respect to, say, like the Nasdaq. I think it's gotten, you know, hit quite hard, and it should start hopefully doing well again soon. But we'll see.
Yeah.
A fun fact is that because where I am in Dubai in the UAE, you do see a lot of Teslas around. You know, they are pretty popular, and when you consider that, you know, fuel is very cheap here because it basically comes out of the ground next to you. That's quite surprising. But what I've really noticed in the last few months is a lot more of these Chinese EVs, these Chinese-made EVs, these things like Jetors, BYD, you know, these brands that, you know, never heard of. They're becoming really popular here, and they are cheap. I looked up one. You know, to buy one of these things cheap, to buy one of these things new, doesn't cost an awful lot. And I must admit, I haven't actually been in one yet, but everyone I talk to who's been in one raves about them, to the extent that I think the president of General Motors had a few of them flown over to wherever GM's is it Michigan GM's headquartered, wherever it is, had them flown over at great expense, so as they could all look at them. And apparently, you know, the Chinese have really sort of figured it out, you know, how to build these really good EVs that I think that apparently really give Tesla a run for their money, and build them cheaply. And I think that is something I think probably Tesla should be worried about. But at the same time, you know, I hear these Cybertrucks, even though they're really expensive, they've apparently been selling pretty well. You know, there's definitely demand for them. So, and of course, as you said, Ben, you can't really rule out. You can't. Elon Musk is just such an extraordinary character, isn't he? You know, I wouldn't bet against him. Put it like that.
I think anyone who's ever bet against him realizes they shouldn't bet against him again. Someone says Cybertrucks look like dumpsters with wheels. You know, I feel like they do look a lot. They do look strange, but like, you know, a lot of times when something new is introduced, everyone thinks it's weird and strange. Then a few years later, it just kind of becomes more accepted and normal, and no one thinks like that anymore. So I wonder if that's going to happen. But I look, when I see them, they definitely stick out. You know, when my kids see them, I feel like my kids ask, "What's that?" You know, because they don't see many cars that look like Cybertrucks. But no, I thought it was pretty cool. I just think that we'll have to see how Tesla can fare from here. But yeah, I do own some. I actually picked some up not too long ago, and I was sort of hoping that they would get a good earnings report. So I'm actually pretty happy right now. But I think the bigger question is, can this actually be sustained? Because there's been a lot of similar rallies like it over the last couple of years, and it hasn't actually been sustained. So I think that's the bigger question, but we will see. So
one more question then, Ben. Are you gonna do a show? Can you do an episode of NFA live from your Cybertruck at some point in the future?
You know,
because I don't think you need to sell an awful lot of Bitcoin to get one.
If I didn't have 4 kids, maybe I would actually get one, but it's just not the most practical thing to go out and buy because it only fits 5 people. But
oh, right, okay,
yeah. So I actually thought it was really cool. You know what? You know, one of the things about Cybertrucks that I think is interesting. I think it puts people into the market to buy a truck that normally wouldn't buy a truck. You know, like I think there's people that would buy a Cybertruck that wouldn't go buy like an F-150. You know,
well, that could be true. Well,
I think
because it's
yeah.
No,
I saw a really funny video.
Isn't it?
Go ahead.
Isn't it true though that the vast majority of people you see driving around in these trucks really don't need a truck anyway? Like there are some absolutely enormous vehicles on the roads here in Dubai, and I must say, many of them driven terribly. So I'm all in favor of self-driving cars in the future because I think we need it. But like, you know, you're like, are you taking that thing out into the desert? You know, I don't think so.
No.
I saw a really funny video recently. Someone took their Tesla in for an oil change. But it was a joke because they had actually taken the battery out of the Tesla and actually put in an engine. And it was actually running. Yeah, it was actually running like it was actually using. It's hilarious. Like you could look it up on YouTube later. But like the guys are like, no, like we don't need an oil change. It's a Tesla. When he finally convinces the guy to pop the hood, he's like, oh, you do need an oil change. I just thought it was funny.
That's pretty good. That's
kind of
weird.
Too much time on their hands.
No kidding.
You go through the process of buying a Tesla just to convert it to taking gas. All right. 2 more questions. Rob, what's the real estate market doing? You know, look, Fed cut rates, mortgage rates are going up. So what's the real estate market looking like these days?
What'd I do? Oh, so, well, I think just, what's the day? Today's Thursday, right? Just yesterday, we got the report for existing home sales. Previously, it was 3.8 million, and the expectation was 3.84, and we hit 3.84. So houses are still being sold. We throw this up. Housing, but the thing is that the housing, the units that are under construction, which I like to see this, it's good data, but the housing under construction is actually taking a dip. This is August, so we'll see what September goes, but they're trying to crank these houses out. But the amount of actually houses being sold is a little bit down, but I don't think that's a big deal. I'll just tell you like this. What am I going here for? Oh, this is sale prices are going down. Sale prices are going down. I think they're going down. This is what the data says, but from what I'm seeing here is that the houses, the sale prices of houses actually sold, there's a difference between what the listing price actually is and what it actually gets sold at. So when you have a listing price, like I could say tomorrow, okay, I'm selling this green screen house for $1 billion. That's the listing price. And then I'll look at, okay, well, it's only 400,000. So the sale prices of houses sold will go down a little bit. It's just a numbers game. People will say, oh, well, now you'll see it in like, you'll hear reports about it in Florida. You'll hear about it in Texas. You're like the listing price is dropping, I mean, massively. It's because people, I think they have overvaluated their houses and they want to sell it. And that's pretty much how it goes. So like what I see is that like in around where I'm at, there's still buying. There's still, it just depends on how much product is actually being put out. The median house prices will vary, obviously, by state to state. Look at Alabama, 267,000, Arizona, 453,000. It's just all over the place. That's how it is. But there's this one metric I like, months to sell a new home. If you've got, well, it says right here, like if you have like 8, if it says 8, that means that for every 1 house sold, there is 8 houses that are on the market. And you can see right now, as of August, it's only 2.3. So they're still getting out there. I mean, still things are happening. But as a reminder, I mean, not to, I mean, talk about real estate, but even if you, as far as Bitcoin goes, that median average price that I took a look at, if you took Bitcoin and extrapolated out since 2016, it only cost you 6 Bitcoin this time frame to buy a median house of 434,000. Sometimes when I take a look at real estate and we talk about it a lot, sometimes I think to myself, maybe it'd just be easier just to not buy houses like I've been doing, not buy apartment complexes, just holding in a Bitcoin, and then that's it. So like if you want to know about the market, it's doing well. I think that because of as the Fed cuts rates, then you're going to see more of a demand for houses. But then what the problem is that people will just raise their prices because they're like, oh, well, and then we'll see if it actually comes down. But that's about listings and whatnot. So real estate's good. I will tell you this personally, as far as like short-term rentals in Puerto Rico, they're flat across the board. No one's traveling, no one's vacationing, but maybe that's because of they don't want to deal with the hurricanes. But that's from everybody that I talked to in Puerto Rico. So we'll see. But
do you think, I was gonna say, do you think there's any validity to this? Like, I've seen people talk about it for a few years, like the 18.6 year real estate cycle. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I think who was that? There was a gentleman that you had on your show, and I had him on my show too, and we talked about real estate. But he pointed out, he said, everything just goes in cycles, kind of like he said 18, but we rounded up to 2020, 2020, and it seems like we're kind of in that frame where either I think it's where we're supposed to be on an upswing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but I think the next downswing is like what, 2026 maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems about right. I mean, you could see that because by that point, people, I guess the higher rates have started to affect. But I don't know. I really don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
It was Jordan Weir's. That's the guy it was on.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of people that talk about it. Jordan was one. I think Jason Pizzino, I think he talked about it. There's actually a number of guys that have talked about it. And I find it interesting because I'm not honestly, I'm pretty clueless when it comes to real estate. And I'm just kind of interested in where it might go, because I wouldn't mind, getting some real estate at some point. But it's just, I mean, I feel like for so long it's just been so much easier just to buy the S&P 500 and forget about it, rather than deal with tenants. But if I think the problem right now with real estate is that like prices are high and rates are high. And so one of those two things at some point needs to change, I feel like, for the math to work. And that's the reason why I think there's been so few transactions, is because, everyone's locked in like a 3% 30-year fixed mortgage rate. They don't want to sell.
They don't want to sell. Why would they sell?
It's free money. I mean, the risk-free rate right now is, 4 to 5%. So it would make, it's literally free money,
Yeah, it's and one last thing I'll say, it's like it's one of those safer hedges, because if the quantitative easing comes back, and it comes back with a fury, the only thing that's going to be safe are assets. And that's precious metals, that's crypto, that's real estate, that's land, that's equities. So if you don't, and then in commodities as well, if you don't have those and you're in cash, I think it's going to be very tough for you.
Yeah. No, I mean, cash is devalued over a long period of time. So got to find something. Someone asked a good question. gold and silver, I think have been on a pretty good run here. And it's probably because they're either sensing out a policy mistake by the Fed, or they're sensing that QE is about to come. And maybe it's both, right? Maybe there's a mistake and QE is about to come. But what do you guys think about? I'm curious what you guys think about gold and silver. Any strong opinions on them?
That's a Guy question.
Guy, what do you think?
I don't know. I don't have much of an opinion on silver, to be honest. Although I gather it's rallying quite hard, or it's overdue a rally, or something along those lines. But I mean, I think gold is there's still a good case to hold gold. I mean, I will rotate some of a proportion of my profits from this upcoming bull run, upcoming alt season, into gold, probably tokenized gold. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the part of any sort of well balanced portfolio. Silver, like I say, I'm not so sure of.
Hey, Guy,
right,
go ahead, Ben.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Rob. Because
I was going to say, how do you for the tokenized gold? Is there a specific company token that you're using? I've heard about it. I've heard it actually is offered. But I'm not.
Yeah. Well, I'd use PAX-G. I mean, there's a tether product. There's XAUT. But I'd go for PAX-G, which is obviously Paxos, and that's backed by physical gold in London, in vaults in London. And well, yeah, I mean, I agree with what Rocco says in that comment. It's not a quick flip thing. So, but I generally tend to have a sort of longer term outlook. So, yeah, I think in those circumstances, gold is a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's good to have like maybe 5 to 10% allocated to precious metals. I think over the long period, like, stocks do tend to outperform, but occasionally you get a decade where stocks are flat and precious metals outperform. So yeah, no, I mean, I think, speaking of gold, you were saying that like you're more gold seemed more obvious than silver. It's the same thing actually, because like going into the last question about Bitcoin dominance, it's the same thing, right? With like precious metals, like gold has basically been outperforming all the other precious metals because it's like the safest one within its asset class, right? It's the blue chip of its own asset class. And so gold has actually been outperforming silver for quite a while. I think silver might start to catch up, especially as we get out into 2025. But in the short term, gold has done really, really well. And Rocco's right. When it starts moving, the last two times it was in a bull market, 1970s and the 2000s, I mean, it rallied for like a decade. And yes, there were, some 20 to 30% drops in there that lasted for maybe more than just that lasted for a few months. But you look back on it a decade later and you're like, wow, it literally just went up for 10 years straight. I think the reason why all the millennials hate gold, one of the reasons is because, ever since we became to the age of becoming an investor, gold hasn't gone anywhere, right? Because it basically topped out in 2011 or something, right? When a lot of us were, getting out of college. And then ever since then, it hadn't been putting in new highs. Now it's finally putting in new highs, and it's starting to go on probably a pretty impressive bull run is what I'm guessing. But we will see. Last question about Bitcoin dominance, Rob's favorite topic. Look, a new cycle high by Bitcoin dominance was just achieved last week. It hit 59%. So Rob, when are you going to bring us home with Bitcoin dominance? And is it going to go to 60? But furthermore, here's the big question. What is it going to stop at 60? Or do you think it actually can run further than that? I'm curious what you think.
I'm going to tell you. So this is the same question I get about Bitcoin price predictions, which I get a lot of the questions are. And I tell people consistently, I said, Bitcoin price is going to go in 2025 somewhere between $5 and 500,000. So Bitcoin dominance will go somewhere between 58.6% to somewhere up to, and I think we even talked about this. This is one of like a year ago. And I said that I think that Bitcoin dominance could go up to 65%. And so I think that I mean, if you're talking about a range, I know 60% seems kind of like outlandish, but I was like, I can see that. I can see a 65, and it all depends on the narrative. And it goes back to what Guy was talking about with Larry Fink and how he's pushing the ETFs and how big it can be. Like if you really take a look at it, I mean, Bitcoin is one of those things that, I mean, it is a hedge against the debasement of currency. It is for the instability of geopolitical issues, and it's for inflation. And with all the money printing that's going on, and people, if they understand that, I think they could really rally. Do I see 65% as a lock? No, 60% seems fine. I think that would be great, especially with the meme coin super cycle that's happening, Ben. So we'll see.
I don't know. Whenever I hear super cycle, I feel like it's best to run the other way. But no, I think it's funny because my target was always around 60%, and now it's getting close to that, and it still seems like altcoins could keep on dropping for a little bit. So we'll see. 6% really isn't that far away. It's like just another percent,
Yeah.
And right now Bitcoin is actually back up to around 68K, and dominance is actually back at almost 59%. It's at 58.97. So I mean, look, it's only another percent to get to 60. I guess the question is how much higher does it run? Guy, do you have any thoughts on how much higher it could run?
I mean, well, it circles back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the stream, doesn't it? And the weakness in ETH BTC. I don't think if ETH continues to underperform, then the only other threat to Bitcoin, the only other realistic threat to Bitcoin dominance, I think, is stablecoins. The continuing climb in stablecoin market cap. But that is, I mean, that's a kind of inexorable uptrend, but it's much more gradual. So, I think in the short term, without a major ETH rally, then yeah, it can definitely climb past 60%. Where it stops, I've no idea. But yeah, I think other than ETH, the only other threat is stablecoins, and like I say, they tend to rally. Their overall market cap is not such a sort of breakneck process. So yeah, sky's the limit in a way.
So they're saying 65 or 67% could be possible. Someone said 62 to 65% at the beginning of the stream. Let's see. Are there any questions before we go? We probably have time for maybe one question, but we will see. I do think dominance can hit 60. It's funny because I would have assumed that if Bitcoin dominance were at 59%, that the total 3 minus USDT divided by Bitcoin chart, I would have assumed that would be a lot lower. But that chart is still at 0.38. It's still kind of at the same spot it's been at for 2 years. So, it's just kind of interesting because if that actually does drop, then Bitcoin dominance should easily hit 60%. But we'll see. We'll see. Let's see. Are there any other questions, guys? I don't really see any questions.
No, say Bitcoin's taking off. That could be like somewhere between 1% and 10%. Who knows?
So Bitcoin's up 1.86% on the day.
We did it.
So
we did it.
Yeah, 67,883. So, the main lower high that arguably it needs to take out is just north of 70K. So my guess is there won't be any decision until next week, right? Get the labor market reports out, and then Bitcoin will decide where it's going to go.
Yeah. Then
maybe guys.
We can get rid of this. Yeah, maybe we can get rid of this presidential election finally. Be done with it.
It would be nice to move on to other things. Someone says, "When Tesla minivan."
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
Haven't they got a truck coming out, like an actual? I don't know what the term you guys use for it, like a proper lorry.
It's a
to pull a container.
Yeah, it looks like a toaster, and it's supposed to be like a robo-taxi, but like a bus.
Right. No, but that's the robo-taxi, I think, or that's like for passengers. But I think they've actually got like a haulage vehicle, so to speak, like one of these big rigs. Like I don't know, like how many wheels they've got. The truckers truckers drive. You can tell I'm not much of a, I'm not very clued in this, but I've seen stuff about that. So it seems they're pursuing that part of it.
Someone says, job reports coming next week. However, unemployment claims came in today. What's the difference? So just say like the claims today are just something that comes in every week, right? Initial claims and continued claims come in every week, Thursday morning, at least Thursday morning, East Coast of the United States. The next week is the week where we get all the monthly labor market data, right? Like the job openings, the job hires, job quits, the unemployment rate, total non-farm payroll, all that stuff comes out next week. So that's why I think it's more likely than not that Bitcoin won't make a true decision about its direction until next week after that. Because actually the unemployment rate started dropping 2 months ago. And ever since that happened, Bitcoin's basically been rallying back up. So we'll see where the unemployment rate comes in about a week. So guys, thank you for tuning in today. Guy and Rob, thanks for being here. And guys, if you wanna see NFA live next week, it will be on Rob's channel. So make sure you guys subscribe to Rob, subscribe to Guy. Links are in the description below, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Cheers, everyone. Bye bye.